The Vanishing Fleet. The Earth United Defense Fleet's flagship Vanguard cut through the darkness of space like a knife, its massive silhouette briefly eclipsing the distant stars as it led humanity's last major battle group. At nearly 2 kilometers long, the Vanguard represented everything humanity had left to give. Their final desperate technological marvel in a war they were steadily losing. Captain Eliza Reeves stood on the bridge, her weathered face illuminated by the soft blue glow of tactical displays. At 42, she had already witnessed the fall of 17 human colonies to the relentless advance of the beings humans had come to call the Nexus, an interconnected hive mind of crystalline entities that consumed planets for resources. The Nexus had appeared without warning at the edge of human space 3 years ago. "Battle group is in formation, Captain," reported Commander Jackson Way, her executive officer. His voice remained steady despite the tension evident in his stance. "All 14 ships report ready status." Reeves nodded. Her gray eyes scanning the tactical display were 14 blue markers, representing all that remained of humanity's once proud interstellar fleet, formed a precise arrowhead formation with the Vanguard at its tip. "The Nexus fleet has altered course," announced Lieutenant Sophia Diaz from the sensor station. "They're moving to intercept. Count is 27 vessels." Reeves felt the familiar knot in her stomach tighten. Nearly 2-to-1 odds, but that wasn't unusual anymore. What was unusual was the location, the Arcturus threshold, a region of space known for unusual gravitational anomalies and quantum fluctuations that made both navigation and sensors unreliable. "This is our last chance," she said quietly to Way. "If we can't stop them here, New Terra falls, and after that." Weed nodded grimly. After New Terra, only Earth and its inner colonies remained. Billions of lives were counting on this battle. "All ships, battle stations," Reeves commanded, her voice carrying across the fleet via quantum entanglement communicators. "Primary weapons charged and ready. Remember, we aim for their central nodes. It's the only way we found to disable them." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, each member knowing this might be humanity's final stand. The ship's AI, projected the battle simulations on the main view screen, calculating probabilities that made Reeves wince. "Incoming," shouted Diaz. Energy surged from the lead vessels. "Evasive pattern Delta," Reeves ordered. "All ships, defensive screens at maximum." The massive Vanguard pivoted with surprising agility as blinding beams of coherent energy sliced through space where it had been moments before. 2 smaller vessels in the fleet weren't as fortunate. The UES Intrepid and the UES Dauntless erupted into expanding clouds of superheated gas and debris as the Nexus weapons found their marks. "Return fire," Reeves commanded. "Target their lead vessel, the Vanguard's main cannon." An experimental graviton lance, powered up, drawing enormous energy from the ship's antimatter reactor. A lance of distorted spacetime erupted from the bow, striking the lead Nexus vessel. For a moment, the crystalline ship seemed to warp and twist, its perfect geometry distorting before the outer shell shattered, exposing the pulsing core within. "Direct hit," Way reported, a rare hint of excitement in his voice. "Their central node is exposed. All ships, concentrate fire on the exposed node," Reeves ordered. The remaining human vessels focused their firepower, and the Nexus flagship exploded in a dazzling display of crystalline fragments and energy. But the victory was short-lived. The remaining Nexus vessels adjusted their formation with unsettling precision, and 3 more beams struck the Vanguard, overwhelming its defensive screens and carving deep gashes in its armored hull. "Hull breach, decks 12 through 17, reported Lieutenant Commander Hiroshi Tanaka, Damage Control Officer. "Sealing emergency bulkheads." Reeves gripped her command chair as the ship shuddered violently. "Status report." The ship's AI responded in its calm, feminine voice. "Defensive screens at 32%. Main reactor containment stable but strained. Weapon systems operating at 76% efficiency. We have lost contact with the UES Valiant and UES Resolute. The tactical display updated, showing 4 human ships now destroyed or disabled. The Nexus vessels were closing in, their formation shifting to envelop the human fleet. "Captain," Wei said urgently, "sensors are detecting unusual quantum fluctuations from the Arcturus anomaly. The gravitational readings are spiking." Reeves studied the sensor data, her mind racing. It was a desperate gamble, but they were out of options. "All vessels, new coordinates being transmitted," she announced. "We're going to use the anomaly." Wei's eyes widened. "Captain, navigating that close to the Arcturus anomaly is extremely dangerous. The quantum fluctuations could tear the ships apart. And staying here guarantees our destruction," Reeves countered. "Sometimes the only way out is through." The remaining human vessels adjusted course, accelerating toward the shimmering distortion in spacetime that marked the Arcturus threshold. The Nexus ships followed, their crystalline hulls pulsing with energy as they prepared another barrage. "They're firing again," Diaz shouted. "Full power to engines," Reeves ordered. "We need to reach the threshold before those beams hit us." The Vanguard surged forward, its massive engines straining as they pushed the ship to its structural limits. Behind them, the deadly energy beams carved through space, closing the distance with terrifying speed. "Threshold in 3, 2, 1, counted Araya. The view screen filled with swirling colors as the Vanguard plunged into the quantum anomaly, the rest of the fleet following closely behind. The energy beams from the Nexus ships struck the anomaly's edge, causing a cascade reaction that none of the ship's sensors could fully process. The bridge erupted into chaos as systems overloaded across the ship. Crew members were thrown from their stations as artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. The main view screen cracked and went dark as power surges overwhelmed the ship's systems. "Reactor containment failing," shouted Chief Engineer Marcel Santos over the comm. "We're experiencing quantum displacement across all decks." Reeves tried to respond, but her voice caught in her throat as reality itself seemed to warp around them. Her last conscious thought was of Earth, wondering if she had just doomed humanity's last hope. And then, silence. In the weeks that followed, the remaining human colonies waited anxiously for news of the battle. When none came, fear turned to despair. Scout ships sent to the Arcturus threshold found nothing. No debris, no energy signatures, no sign that 14 ships and their crews had ever existed. The Nexus continued their advance, methodically harvesting one human world after another. New Terra fell within a month, its population of 3 billion reduced to resources for the alien collective. The inner colonies followed, until only Earth and Mars remained, protected by hastily constructed defensive platforms that everyone knew would not hold for long. Commander Jackson Wei had not been on the bridge when the Vanguard entered the anomaly. He had been coordinating damage control efforts from Auxiliary Command when the quantum displacement ripped through the ship. Instead of oblivion, he found himself, along with 17 other crew members, adrift in a survival pod at the edge of the Arcturus system. Rescued by a civilian transport, Wei became the sole surviving officer to return to Earth. His debriefing at Earth United Defense Command was somber, the assembled generals and admirals grasping for any hope in his account. "There's no evidence that the ships were destroyed," Wei insisted. "The quantum readings before we lost contact suggest they may have been displaced rather than obliterated." Admiral Helena Chen, the last commander of Earth's defense forces, shook her head. "Displaced where, Commander? Our best scientists can't even theorize what happens inside a quantum anomaly of that magnitude." "I don't know," Wei admitted, "but I know Captain Reeves. If there was any way to survive, she would have found it." The meeting ended without resolution, and Wei found himself reassigned to lead a resistance cell operating from Deimos, Mars' smaller moon. From this hidden base, he coordinated guerrilla strikes against Nexus harvesting operations, buying time for civilian evacuations and gathering intelligence on the enemy. It was during one such intelligence-gathering mission, 18 months after the Vanguard's disappearance, that Wei's team discovered something extraordinary. While hacking into a Nexus communication relay near the ruins of the Ganymede colony, they detected a signal unlike anything they had seen before, a quantum frequency that shouldn't have been possible with either human or known Nexus technology. When decoded, the signal contained just 3 words: Vanguard, returning, prepare. We immediately transmitted the finding to Admiral Chen on Earth, using their most secure channel. Her response was immediate and curt: verify and investigate. Take whatever resources you need. Within 48 hours, Wei had assembled a small team of scientists and special forces operators aboard the UES Phantom, a stealth scout vessel that represented one of Earth's few remaining ships. Their mission: follow the quantum signal to its source and determine if, against all odds, the Vanguard had somehow survived. As the Phantom slipped away from Deimos under cover of a Nexus attack elsewhere in the system, Wei stood on its small bridge, staring at the coordinates where the signal originated, the far side of the Arcturus threshold, in a region of space now deep behind Nexus lines. "Captain Reeves," he whispered to himself, "if you're out there, we're coming." The quantum crucible. The UES Phantom emerged from its final jump point at the edge of the Arcturus system, its stealth systems engaged and running silent. Commander Jackson Wei studied the sensor readouts with intense concentration. They had managed to slip past 3 Nexus patrols already, but the alien presence grew denser the closer they got to the mysterious signal's origin. "Status report," Wei ordered quietly, as if the Nexus might hear them through the vacuum of space. "Stealth systems functioning at optimal levels," reported Lieutenant Nadia Ivanova, the Phantom's tactical officer. "Quantum signal is getting stronger. It's definitely coming from within the threshold's radiation belt." Dr. Eleanor Park, the expedition's lead scientist, looked up from her console with evident excitement. "Commander, the signal pattern doesn't match known Nexus communications, but it's using a modified version of our own quantum entanglement technology. Someone deliberately designed this to be recognized by Earth systems while remaining invisible to the Nexus." We nodded, hope kindling in his chest, despite his efforts to remain objective. "How long until we reach the signal source?" "At current speed, 3 hours," answered the pilot, Lieutenant Kazuo Tanaka. "But we'll need to drop out of stealth to navigate the threshold's radiation belt. The fluctuations will make us visible to any Nexus sensors in the area. Then we wait for a window," we decided. "Lieutenant Ivanova, analyze Nexus patrol patterns. Find me a gap we can exploit." For the next 2 hours, the Phantom drifted silently, its crew tense, as they monitored the movements of Nexus vessels throughout the system. Finally, Ivanova spotted what they needed: a 20-minute window when the patrol routes would leave a blind spot in their sensor coverage. "That's our chance," Wei confirmed. "All hands, prepare for rapid approach. Dr. Park, be ready to analyze anything we find. If this is a trap, I want to know before we're in the middle of it." The Phantom accelerated toward the radiation belt, its stealth systems gradually powering down as they diverted energy to the shields necessary to withstand the threshold's quantum fluctuations. The ship shuddered as it entered the belt, alarms blaring as radiation levels spiked. "Shields holding," Tanaka reported, his hands dancing across the controls to keep the small vessel stable. "Quantum distortions increasing. There's something ahead." The view screen adjusted, filtering out the worst of the radiation to reveal a pocket of seemingly calm space within the threshold, and within that pocket, a sight that left the entire bridge crew speechless. The UES Vanguard floated in the center of the anomaly, but it was not alone. Around it, the 13 other ships of the battle group hung suspended in formation, all of them visibly altered. Their hulls now bore crystalline structures seamlessly integrated with the human technology, pulsing with the same energy signature as Nexus vessels, but somehow different, more controlled, more purposeful. "It's them," Wei whispered, hardly daring to believe his eyes. "They survived." "Commander," Dr. Park said, her voice shaking, "those ships have been modified with Nexus technology, but the configuration is unlike anything we've seen. They've somehow adapted it." Before Y could respond, a communication request flashed on the main console. After 18 months of silence, the voice that came through the speakers was hauntingly familiar. "UES Phantom. This is Captain Eliza Reeves of the UES Vanguard. Commander Way, I had a feeling you'd be the one they'd send. Welcome to what we've been calling the Quantum Crucible." Way's professional composure cracked as he replied, "Captain Reeves, how is this possible? The entire fleet was presumed lost." "It's a long story, Commander," Reeves answered, a hint of weariness in her voice. "One best told in person. Sending you docking coordinates now. And Way, hurry. We don't have much time before the Nexus realizes you're here." The Phantom approached cautiously, guided into a docking bay that had been significantly modified from its original design. When Way and his team stepped through the airlock onto the Vanguard, they were met by a security detail wearing uniforms unlike any in Earth's military. Dark blue with crystalline components integrated into the fabric itself. Captain Reeves awaited them in the corridor beyond, but she too had changed. Her once short-cropped gray hair now flowed freely to her shoulders, and a thin line of crystalline material traced along her temple, pulsing faintly with the same energy that suffused the ship. 18 months, she said simply, embracing Y briefly. "For us, it's been nearly 5 years. Time dilation?" Dr. Park asked, already examining the crystalline structures along the corridor walls with a handheld scanner. "Something like that," Reeves confirmed. "The quantum anomaly exists partially outside normal spacetime. When we were pulled in, we found ourselves in what we now understand to be a pocket dimension, a place where reality operates by different rules." As they walked toward the bridge, Wei noticed crew members working seamlessly alongside robotic drones that bore striking resemblances to Nexus worker units. More disturbing were the occasional officers who, like Reeves, had crystalline implants visible on their skin. "What happened to you, Captain?" Wei asked quietly. "What happened to all of you?" Reeves paused before a massive door that hadn't existed in the original Vanguard design. "We adapted, Commander. We had to. When we entered the anomaly, the Vanguard and the entire battle group were severely damaged. We had no way to repair our ships or sustain life support indefinitely. Then we discovered we weren't alone." The door slid open to reveal not the bridge Wei remembered, but an enormous chamber that seemed to be equal parts human technology and crystalline architecture. In the center floated what appeared to be a Nexus central node, but instead of the alien hive mind's characteristic pulsing red energy, this one glowed with a calm blue light. "This is Paradigm," Reeves explained, "a Nexus consciousness that had been trapped in the anomaly long before we arrived, separated from the collective and given time to develop individual awareness." A melodic voice emanated from the crystalline structure. "The ones you call the Nexus were once like me, individual consciousnesses existing in harmony. Then came the corruption, turning them into the consuming collective you now face. I remained untouched, preserved in this pocket of reality." We instinctively reached for his sidearm, but Reeves placed a restraining hand on his arm. "Paradigm saved us, Commander. Taught us how to repair our ships using crystalline technology, how to sustain ourselves when our supplies ran out. In return, we helped it understand humanity, our creativity, our individuality, our determination. Together," Paradigm continued, "we have created something new, neither purely human nor purely crystalline, but a synthesis that preserves the strengths of both." Dr. Park stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her caution. "The crystalline implants, they're interfaces, aren't they? Direct neural connections to the ship's systems." "And to each other," Reeves confirmed. "A limited form of the hive mind, but one that preserves individual consciousness and free will. It's given us capabilities we never imagined possible." We struggled to process everything he was seeing. "Captain, Earth is weeks away from falling. The Nexus has consumed almost every colony. Whatever you've discovered here, we need to know if it can help us fight back." Reeves exchanged a look with Paradigm before answering. "That's why we sent the signal. We're ready to return. The modifications we've made to our ships allow us to navigate the quantum threshold at will. More importantly, we've discovered the Nexus's fundamental weakness." She gestured to a tactical display where a detailed schematic of a Nexus fleet appeared. "The corruption that twisted the original crystalline beings operates on a specific quantum frequency. Paradigm helped us develop weapons that can disrupt that frequency, severing their connection to the hive mind and potentially freeing them from the corruption." "Potentially?" Wei questioned. "We haven't had the opportunity to test it against the actual Nexus fleet," Reeves admitted. "But our simulations show a 78% probability of success." Wei considered this information. "And if it works, what happens to the Nexus ships?" "Their consciousnesses would be freed from the corruption," Paradigm answered. "Some may choose to join us, as your crew has joined with me. Others may not survive the separation, but the alternative is the continued consumption of all life in this galaxy." The implications were staggering. Wei had come seeking a lost fleet and instead found what might be humanity's salvation, not through destruction of their enemy, but through its transformation. "How soon can you be ready?" he asked. "We can leave the quantum crucible within 12 hours, Reeves replied. "But Commander, there's something else you should know. The modifications we've made, the synthesis with crystalline technology, it's irreversible. The crew of the Vanguard and the battle group can never fully return to being just human again." We looked around at the hybrid ship, at the crew members with their crystalline implants, at Paradigm floating serenely at the chamber center. "After what Earth has been through, Captain, I don't think anyone will be too concerned about definitions of humanity. Not if you can save what's left of our civilization." Preparations moved swiftly after that. The Phantom was integrated into the Vanguard systems, its crew given temporary neural interfaces to allow them to communicate and coordinate with the hybrid fleet. Wei watched in fascination as the 14 vessels, now more powerful than they had ever been, readied themselves to re-enter normal space. "Quantum threshold calculations complete," announced Araya, the Vanguard's AI, now visibly enhanced with crystalline components that allowed it to project a holographic avatar. "All ships report ready status. The Nexus will detect us the moment we emerge," Reeves warned. "We'll need to move quickly to reach Earth before they can marshal their full forces against us." We nodded grimly. According to our intelligence, they gathered nearly 60 vessels for the final assault on Earth. Even with your enhanced capabilities, the odds aren't good. "We don't need good odds, Commander," Reeves replied with a confidence Wei hadn't seen since before the war began. "We just need a fighting chance." The transition from the quantum crucible to normal space was disorienting. A kaleidoscope of color and sensation as reality reasserted its familiar laws. The battle group emerged at the edge of the Arcturus system, immediately setting course for Earth at speeds that would have been impossible with conventional human technology. They encountered the first Nexus patrol within hours, 3 crystalline ships that moved to intercept the returning fleet. Wei watched from the Vanguard's bridge as Reeves calmly ordered a single shot from the ship's modified main weapon. A pulse of blue energy struck the lead Nexus vessel, and instead of destroying it, the energy seemed to flow through its crystalline structure, changing the pulsing red glow to a calm blue. "Connection severed," Paradigm announced. "Consciousness liberated." The other 2 Nexus ships hesitated, then fled, presumably to alert the main fleet. Reeves ordered pursuit, but not to destroy them. "Let them spread the word. Let them fear us for a change." The journey to Earth took 4 days, far faster than should have been possible. They arrived to find the Nexus fleet assembled in Earth orbit, moments away from beginning their final assault on humanity's homeworld. Earth's remaining defenses were pitifully inadequate against such force. Admiral Chen's voice came through on an emergency channel, shock evident in her tone. "Vanguard? Is that really you? It's us, Admiral. Reeves confirmed. And we didn't come alone. Hold your positions and prepare for a sight you won't believe. The Vanguard and its battle group accelerated toward the Nexus fleet, their enhanced drives leaving trails of quantum particles in their wake. The Nexus vessels turned to meet them, their familiar formation shifting to bring weapons to bear on this unexpected threat. All ships, Reeves commanded, target the central command vessel with liberation protocols. Secondary targets at your discretion. Remember, we're not here to destroy. We're here to transform. The battle that followed would later be called the Quantum Liberation by human historians. The enhanced human fleet moved with impossible precision, each ship functioning as part of a greater whole while maintaining individual tactical flexibility. The Nexus, for the first time, seemed confused by the familiar yet alien technology they faced. Blue energy pulses struck Nexus vessel after Nexus vessel. Some resisted, their red glow intensifying before shorting out completely. Others transformed, the corruption purged from their systems, joining the battle on humanity's side in growing numbers. The Vanguard took heavy damage as it pressed toward the Nexus command ship, a massive crystalline structure 10 times the size of Reeves' vessel. Coordinated defensive systems as Reeves pushed the ship beyond what should have been possible, quantum shields absorbing punishment that would have vaporized the old Vanguard instantly. We're within range, Araya announced as the massive Nexus flagship loomed before them. Fire everything, Reeves ordered. The Vanguard's weapons discharged in perfect synchrony, joined by beams from the liberated Nexus vessels that had rallied to their cause. The command ship's defenses held initially, then began to fail section by section as the liberation energy worked its way through the crystalline structure. On the main view screen, Y watched as the pulsing red glow that had come to symbolize humanity's doom faltered, flickered, and finally transformed into a steady blue radiance that spread throughout the massive vessel. It's done, Paradigm announced. The primary node is liberated. The corruption is breaking down throughout the fleet. Across the system, Nexus ships either went dormant as their controlling intelligence struggled to process what had happened, or began to glow with the same blue energy as Paradigm, signaling their liberation from the corruption. Admiral Chen's voice came through again, awe and disbelief evident. Captain Reeves, what did you do? We remembered what makes humanity special, Admiral. Reeves replied, looking at Wei, and then at Paradigm. Not our technology or our weapons, but our ability to forge connections, to find common ground even with those who seem utterly alien. We didn't win this war today. We ended it. In the days that followed, Earth cautiously celebrated its salvation, even as it came to terms with the profound changes this victory would bring. The liberated crystalline beings offered to help restore the devastated human colonies, their technology capable of terraforming barren worlds in a fraction of the time human methods required. Captain Reeves and her hybrid crew became something of a bridge between humanity and their former enemies, neither fully one nor the other, but something new and perhaps greater than either alone. Some feared them, others revered them, but none could deny that they had saved humanity from extinction. 6 months after the quantum liberation, Commander Wei, now Admiral Wei, stood with Reeves on the observation deck of the Vanguard, watching as the first joint human crystalline colony ship departed Earth orbit, bound for the stars. Do you ever regret it? Wei asked quietly. The transformation, I mean. Reeves considered the question, the crystalline implant at her temple pulsing gently with thought. Sometimes I miss certain aspects of being fully human, but then I remember what we gained, not just survival, but a new way of existing, a new perspective on what's possible when different forms of consciousness work together instead of against each other. She turned to look at him, her eyes reflecting both human emotion and something else, a depth of understanding that transcended ordinary experience. Besides, humanity has always been about adaptation, about becoming more than we were. In that sense, we're more human now than we ever were before. We nodded thoughtfully, watching as the colony ship engaged its quantum drive, disappearing in a flash of blue light toward a future neither humanity nor the crystalline beings could have imagined on their own. To adaptation, then, he said, raising an imaginary glass. And to whatever comes next. To whatever comes next, Reeves agreed, her gaze already turning back to the stars.